Have you ever met someone whose presence calms a room without them saying a single word? They're not loud, not flashy, but somehow everyone notices when they walk in and listens when they finally speak. That's not charisma. It's not confidence. It's mental strength. And psychology shows it runs deeper than you think. It's built from the way they think, feel, recover, and stay steady in chaos. This video breaks down the real psychological traits behind exceptionally strong minds, the ones who move quietly but carry power you can feel. Let's find out how many of these traits you've already built and which ones might still be waiting inside you. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. You don't notice it at first, not because it's invisible, but because it doesn't try to be noticed. You feel it before you see it. The calm presence, the unshaken breath, the quiet eyes that seem to understand more than they say. They walk into a room and something shifts, not through force, not through charm, but through groundedness, through certainty. No demand for attention, no flexing, just a quiet gravity, like the center of a storm that never spins. And maybe you've met someone like this, maybe you've felt it. The subtle strength in someone who doesn't need to win the room because they've already won the war inside themselves. It makes you wonder, where does that kind of power come from? Why do some people collapse under pressure, while others stand still even when the world tilts sideways? We tend to confuse confidence with noise, strength with control, charisma with clarity. But real mental strength lives somewhere deeper. It's not a mask, it's a structure. It's not performance, it's architecture. This is the psychology behind those minds. The exceptionally strong ones, the ones that bend but don't break, the ones that see clearly, speak slowly, and move through the world without needing to be seen. Let's go there. Real strength isn't loud, it's layered. It starts with emotional regulation, the quiet anchor beneath all storms. Strong minds don't suppress their emotions. They don't push them down or pretend they're not there. They just wait. They observe before reacting. Neuroscience calls it the prefrontal pause, that small window of awareness between stimulus and response. It's not dramatic, it's just slower, measured. You see it in micro moments, a breath before speaking, a stillness before deciding, a choice not to escalate, even when they could. And underneath that stillness lives something else, an internal locus of control. They believe deeply, I can influence what happens next, not by controlling everything, but by controlling how they respond. That belief alone shifts a person from fear to agency. It changes how they carry themselves. And then there's this, they don't need applause. They don't build their worth on performance. This is the low need for external validation, the quiet freedom of not chasing approval. Strong minds don't broadcast themselves. They don't try to convince you they're okay. They just are. That internal stability means their energy doesn't leak. It's contained, rooted. Another trait, cognitive flexibility. They can reframe, adapt, shift perspectives. They're not rigid in thought because they're not afraid of being wrong. This makes them more responsive to reality, not less. And surrounding it all, psychological boundaries, not walls, not distance, just selective permeability. Their mind is like a fortress with open gates and a guard at the door. Not everyone gets in. Not every opinion gets to shape them. They listen, but they filter. This doesn't make them cold, it makes them clear, because strength isn't made of steel. It's made of emotional clarity, of nervous system safety, of disciplined thought and generous restraint. What does all this look like in real life? It looks like calm in conflict. When things go wrong, when others react, panic, spiral, they stay grounded. Not because they don't feel, but because they trust themselves to feel without losing control. It looks like silence, used intentionally. They don't fill space with words. They don't chase understanding through volume. They let silence do its work. You'll notice it, that pause before replying, that moment where others rush in. Um, but they such wait, 3 seconds can feel like power. And there's more. They don't absorb other people's storms. They have emotional immunity. When someone projects anger, shame, or chaos, they don't soak it in. They hold their shape. You can't guilt them into reaction. You can't pull them into a script they didn't write. Why? Because they take self-ownership. They don't outsource blame. They don't look for excuses. Their power comes not from being right, but from being responsible. They manage their energy like it's sacred. Not everyone gets their time. Not every message gets a reply. Not every fight gets their participation. From the outside, this can look like stillness, but inside, it's structure. There's a rhythm to how they live, a discipline to how they think, and a quiet certainty that whispers, I know who I am. I know what I allow. I know what I protect. That is strength, not a performance, a presence. But here's what most people miss. Exceptionally strong minds are rarely born that way. They're shaped slowly, often painfully. Many of them were once children forced to become adults too early. They carried more than they should have, held in what no one asked about, learned to read the room before they knew how to read words. Over responsibility in childhood. It teaches regulation through survival. Stay calm or they'll explode. Don't cry or no one will come. That's how self-control becomes self-protection. Others were emotionally self-reliant early on, not because they wanted to be, but because there was no one to co-regulate with. So they built it inside, a mental space where they could feel without drowning. And then came adversity, failures, rejections, betrayals. Each one taught them something. You bend, you feel, but you don't break. That's how the architecture forms. Pain lays the foundation, reflection adds the frame, discipline builds the walls, until eventually, that child who once had no control becomes the adult who feels safe inside their own mind. Their strength, it's not arrogance, it's not detachment, it's self-awareness. They've met their own darkness eyes and stayed. They've faced their own fear and moved anyway. That's the deepest kind of strength, not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep showing up alongside it. So what does this mean for you? It means strength doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be hardened. It doesn't have to perform. You don't have to become someone else to build it. You just have to return to yourself. Here's where to begin. Start by noticing how often you seek approval. Start by pausing before reacting. Start by choosing what gets to enter your mental space. And when fear comes, don't wait for it to disappear. Move with it. Because the strongest minds aren't fearless. They are familiar with fear and move anyway. Start small. One breath before responding. One boundary held. One truth spoken without apology. And over time, the world will begin to feel different. Not because it changed, but because you did. The strongest minds are not the loudest. They are the ones who remain steady. Even when everything else starts to shake. Strength isn't something you chase. It's something you cultivate. Quietly, patiently, consistently, from the inside out. Do you feel like you had to build strength earlier than most? Do you stay calm on the outside while carrying storms within? Or are you still learning to trust the power already inside you? If this story resonated, remember to like the video, subscribe, press the bell icon, and share it with someone who might need it. Our other stories should be appearing on your screen now. Watch them next, and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time with a brand new video.